Welcome to Classic Books Deep Dive. I am Michael, and as always, Joanna's with me today.
Always a pleasure to be here.
Today, we're taking a deep dive into the world of Donald Trump's real estate strategies, guided by Trump Strategies for Real Estate. This book, co-written by George H. Ross, Trump's longtime advisor and legal counsel, is like a masterclass in deal-making, negotiation, and understanding what makes people tick, even if you're not looking to build a skyscraper. This book has so much to offer.
Absolutely. It's fascinating how these strategies, honed in the high-stakes world of New York real estate, can be applied to so many different aspects of life.
Okay, so the book kicks off with these 5 key qualities that Ross says were instrumental to Trump's success: enthusiasm, relationship building, showmanship, preparation, and tenacity. And to really bring these to life, Ross takes us back to one of Trump's early wins, the transformation of the Commodore Hotel into the Grand Hyatt New York. Imagine. It's the 1970s. New York City is teetering on the edge of bankruptcy, and this once grand hotel is now a crumbling eyesore.
What's fascinating here is that most people saw a lost cause. But Trump saw an opportunity. He had this almost infectious enthusiasm, this ability to paint a picture of a revitalized Grand Central area, anchored by a world-class hotel.
Yeah. Ross describes how Trump wouldn't just talk about square footage and profits. He'd talk about the positive ripple effect on the city, the jobs created, the tax revenue generated. It was like he was selling a vision, not just a building.
And that vision resonated with people. He convinced city officials who were initially skeptical about giving him tax breaks. He brought Hyatt on board to manage the hotel. It was a masterclass in relationship building.
And let's not forget the showmanship. I mean, that iconic glass facade of the Grand Hyatt, it completely changed the look and feel of the neighborhood. It wasn't just about functionality. It was about making a statement.
Right. It was a bold move, and it paid off. The Grand Hyatt became a symbol of New York's resurgence, and years later, Trump sold his half-interest for a massive profit. But beyond the financial success, it really showcased his tenacity, his ability to overcome obstacles and bring that vision to life. He wasn't afraid to fight for what he believed in, like when he spent years relentlessly pursuing a 40-year tax abatement from the city.
Which, by the way, is a really interesting example of understanding the power dynamics at play. He knew the city desperately needed the revenue this project could bring, and he used that leverage to negotiate a deal that was favorable to him.
It's a great example of how these seemingly soft skills, like enthusiasm and relationship building, can be just as important as the hard numbers in a negotiation.
Okay, so speaking of thinking big, the book dives into Trump's philosophy of aiming high. And Ross uses the Trump World Tower project as a prime example. Now, this is where things get really interesting.
Trump had his sights set on this prime piece of real estate across from the United Nations headquarters. But there was a problem. Zoning laws limited the size of any new building on that land.
So what did he do? He went on a mission to acquire something called air rights, which essentially means buying the unused development potential above existing buildings.
It's a complex concept. And he had to negotiate with multiple property owners, each with their own motivations and demands. He had to piece together this intricate puzzle of air rights to get permission to build what was at the time the tallest residential building in New York City.
Imagine the legal hurdles and the pushback he must have faced from residents who didn't want a giant skyscraper blocking their views. But he persevered, demonstrating that unwavering determination that Ross highlights throughout the book.
And it wasn't just about building tall, it was about maximizing the value of the property. By acquiring those air rights, he was able to build more units, command higher prices, and ultimately create a landmark that redefined the city's skyline.
It's like he was playing 3D chess while everyone else was playing checkers.
And that ability to think outside the box, to find creative solutions to seemingly impossible problems, is a recurring theme in Trump's real estate career. Take the 40 Wall Street project, for example. This building was a financial black hole. Everyone told him to stay away. But Trump, as always, had a different perspective.
He saw potential where others saw only problems. He imagined converting this failing building into prime office space. And guess what? He pulled it off, proving the naysayers wrong once again. It's like Ross is saying, sometimes the biggest obstacles can lead to the greatest opportunities, if you're willing to challenge conventional wisdom.
You know what's interesting about these examples? It's how Trump consistently zeroes in on the psychological aspects of a deal.
Yeah, that's a recurring theme in the book. It's not just about the bricks and mortar. It's about understanding what motivates people, what makes them tick.
And nowhere is that more evident than in his approach to negotiation. Ryle dedicates a whole section to Trump's negotiation principles, and you'll be surprised how many of them you can apply to your own life, whether you're haggling for a car or negotiating a salary.
Okay, give me an example. What's one of those golden nuggets of wisdom?
Well, one of the most fundamental principles is this: information is king. Trump is a relentless gatherer of information. He wants to know everything about the other side, their motivations, their financial situation, their pressure points.
It's like going into a battle, armed to the teeth. If you know your opponent better than they know themselves, you have a huge advantage.
Exactly. But it's not just about collecting data, it's about knowing how to analyze it, how to connect the dots and see the bigger picture. Ross talks about how Trump would scrutinize financial statements, looking for inconsistencies, hidden expenses, and opportunities that others might miss.
So he's not just taking things at face value. He's digging deeper, almost like a detective trying to solve a mystery.
That's a great analogy, and that leads us to the next principle. Don't be misled by the aura of legitimacy. It's a fancy way of saying, don't believe everything you hear, especially from so-called experts. Always question assumptions and verify information independently.
So even if someone comes in with a fancy title and a stack of reports, Trump's not just going to nod and smile. He's going to challenge them, poke holes in their arguments, make sure he's getting the real story.
Right, and that's a valuable lesson for anyone, not just in business. Don't let yourself be intimidated by authority or jargon. Do your own research, ask tough questions, and trust your gut.
Okay, so what's the next negotiation principle?
Well, this one is particularly interesting. Ross calls it the invested time principle. The idea is that the longer someone spends on a deal, the more committed they become, even if the terms aren't ideal.
Oh, I've seen this in action. People get so wrapped up in the negotiation process that they lose sight of the big picture. They're so invested in the time and energy they've already put in that they're willing to make concessions just to get the deal done.
Exactly. And Ross explains how Trump is a master at leveraging this principle. He'll meticulously consider every detail, drawing out the negotiation process, subtly increasing the other side's sense of investment.
It's like he's slowly turning up the heat, making it harder and harder for them to walk away empty-handed.
But it's not just about manipulation. It's about understanding human psychology and using that knowledge to create win-win scenarios.
So if you can make the other person feel like they've played a significant role in shaping the deal, they're more likely to be happy with the outcome, even if they've given up a little ground.
Now, beyond these core principles, Ross dives into a whole arsenal of negotiation tactics and countermeasures that Trump uses. We could spend hours discussing them all, but there's one that I found particularly insightful: the strategic use of deadlocks, deadlines, and delays.
Wait, hold on. Aren't those things usually considered bad in a negotiation?
Well, conventionally, yes. But Ross explains how these seemingly negative elements can actually be used to gain leverage. For instance, walking away from a deal, even temporarily, can create a sense of urgency and make the other side more willing to compromise.
Oh, I see. It's like the classic take it or leave it tactic. It suddenly raises the stakes.
Exactly. And deadlines can be just as effective. Trump is known for setting firm deadlines, which forces people to make decisions and prevents endless back and forth.
It injects a sense of momentum into the negotiation process.
Now, delays can be trickier, but Ross explains that sometimes a strategic delay can be beneficial. It might give you time to gather more information, reassess the situation, or simply let the other side cool down if things get too heated.
So it's all about knowing when to push forward and when to take a step back, always keeping your ultimate goal in mind.
Now let's move on to another fascinating aspect of Trump's approach that Ross highlights: creating sizzle. This is about going beyond the basics and adding those special touches that elevate a property from ordinary to extraordinary.
It's about creating an experience, an aura of luxury and exclusivity that makes people willing to pay a premium.
And what better example of this than Trump Tower on Fifth Avenue? This building is a statement. From the moment you walk into that grand atrium, with its cascading waterfall and meticulously matched pink marble, you know you're somewhere special.
It's like stepping into a movie set.
And Ross points out that this attention to detail extends to every aspect of the building, from the premium materials used in construction to the carefully curated retail spaces. It's all about reinforcing that perception of luxury and value.
But it's not just about grand gestures. It's about the little things, too, right? Ross talks about how Trump obsesses over details like landscaping, lighting, even the placement of furniture.
Exactly. He understands that creating that wow factor is about layering those small details to create an overall impression of sophistication and exclusivity.
And it's not just about aesthetics, it's about functionality too. Ross describes how Trump incorporates features that enhance the lives of his residents, from state-of-the-art security systems to concierge services that cater to their every whim.
It's about creating a seamless, effortless lifestyle, and that's something people are willing to pay for.
Now I know what you're thinking. That's all well and good for a billionaire developer, but how can I apply these principles to my own life?
Well, that's the beauty of it. The principles are scalable. You don't need a fortune to create sizzle.
So even if I'm just renting out a small apartment,
Right.
I can still apply these ideas.
Absolutely. It's about understanding what your target audience values and finding creative ways to deliver on those expectations.
So maybe it's investing in high-quality appliances, sprucing up the landscaping, or offering exceptional customer service to make my tenants feel valued.
Exactly. It's about going the extra mile, exceeding expectations, and creating a positive experience that people are willing to pay for.
Okay, so we've talked about negotiation, creating sizzle, and this overarching theme of understanding human psychology. What else does Ross delve into?
Well, one of the most practical and valuable chapters in the book focuses on the importance of leveraging other people's expertise. Trump is a master at assembling a team of top-notch professionals. From architects and lawyers to contractors and marketing gurus, he knows he can't be an expert in everything, so he surrounds himself with people who are.
It's like building a dream team, each member bringing their own unique skills and experience to the table.
And Ross emphasizes that this principle applies to everyone, regardless of your field.
So whether I'm starting a business, writing a book, or even planning a renovation, I should be thinking about who I can bring on board to help me succeed.
Exactly. And the book actually offers some great advice on how to find and select the right professionals for your needs. Ross talks about the importance of researching their reputation, looking at their track record, and making sure they specialize in the area you need help with.
So it's not just about picking the first name that pops up on Google. You really need to do your homework and make sure it's a good fit.
And once you've assembled your dream team, it's about managing them effectively. Ross explains how Trump fosters a collaborative environment, encourages open communication, and sets clear expectations.
It's about creating a culture of respect and trust, where everyone feels valued and empowered to contribute their best work.
Now let's shift gears and talk about a topic that's often seen as the less glamorous side of real estate, but is absolutely crucial. Raising money. Let's face it, most of us don't have millions lying around to fund our real estate dreams. So how do we attract lenders and investors? Well, Ross breaks down Trump's strategies. And it's not all about slick presentations and high-pressure tactics.
Yeah, I imagine it takes more than just a firm handshake and a charming smile to convince someone to invest in your vision.
Absolutely. Ross talks about the importance of building long-term relationships with banks and investors. It's about showing them that you're a reliable borrower or a savvy investor who can deliver consistent returns.
It's about building trust and credibility, showing them that you're the real deal.
And Trump backs up his proposals with meticulously researched financial projections. He doesn't just talk the talk, he shows them the numbers, demonstrates a deep understanding of the market, and lays out a clear plan for success.
So it's a combination of building relationships, showcasing your expertise, and having a solid plan that inspires confidence.
Exactly. And, even if you're not dealing with millions of dollars, these principles still apply.
So if I'm trying to get a loan for a small investment property, I should be thinking about how I can demonstrate my knowledge of the market and present a clear and compelling business plan.
Right. And don't underestimate the power of a good credit history.
Oh, yeah, that's crucial. Lenders want to see that you're responsible with money.
Exactly. Ross actually shares a story about how early in his career, he learned this lesson the hard way. He thought getting a mortgage would be a piece of cake, given his connections and the strength of the deal. But even friends and family who had initially promised to invest backed out at the last minute. It was a wake-up call for him. A reminder that building a good credit history takes time and effort.
It's about consistently demonstrating responsible financial behavior, paying your bills on time, and showing lenders that you can be trusted with their money.
Now, beyond traditional bank loans, Ross also explores alternative financing strategies that Trump uses, like syndications and partnerships.
I've heard of those. But can you explain how they work?
Sure. Syndications are basically groups of investors who pool their resources to fund a project. And partnerships involve two or more parties sharing the costs and profits of a venture.
So if I don't have the capital or the credit history to secure a traditional loan, I could potentially partner with others to make my real estate dreams a reality.
Exactly. And Ross provides a lot of insight into how to structure these partnerships effectively, ensuring that all parties are protected and the venture is set up for success.
So it's about having clear communication, defined roles, and a shared vision for the future.
And it's not just about finding investors, it's about treating them well. Ross talks about how Trump values his investors, keeps them informed, and makes sure they feel like partners in his success.
It's about building long-term relationships based on mutual respect and trust.
Now let's dive into another aspect of real estate that's often overlooked, but is essential for maximizing the value of your investments: property management.
Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in the excitement of buying and selling properties.
Yeah.
But if you don't manage them well, you're going to run into problems.
Exactly. And Ross emphasizes that Trump views his properties as businesses, and he runs them with the same attention to detail and customer service that he applies to his other ventures.
So it's not just about collecting rent checks. It's about creating a positive experience for tenants, responding promptly to maintenance requests, and keeping the property in top condition.
And Ross is full of practical tips for effective property management. He stresses the importance of cleanliness, responsiveness, and proactive maintenance.
It's about anticipating problems before they arise and nipping them in the bud.
And it's not just about keeping the property in good shape. It's about creating a sense of community.
Oh, that's interesting. How does Trump do that?
Ross describes how he often incorporates amenities and social events that encourage residents to interact and get to know each other.
So it's about creating a place where people want to live, not just a building where they sleep.
Precisely. And, even if you're just renting out a single unit, you can still apply these principles.
So maybe it's organizing a potluck for my tenants, or setting up a bulletin board where they can share information and connect.
Exactly. It's about thinking beyond the basics and finding ways to make your property stand out. Now let's move on to one of the more challenging aspects of real estate, dealing with difficult people. Whether it's a stubborn seller, a demanding tenant, or an unreliable contractor, there are always going to be those personalities you have to navigate.
Yeah, it's inevitable. Conflicts are going to arise, especially in a high-pressure field like real estate. So how does Trump handle those situations?
Well, Ross emphasizes that clear communication is key. Trump always makes sure everyone is on the same page. Expectations are clearly laid out, and there's no room for misinterpretation.
So it's about being upfront and direct, not beating around the bush.
Right. And he's also a big believer in active listening, really taking the time to understand the other person's perspective, even if it doesn't agree with it.
That's so important. Sometimes just feeling heard can go a long way in de-escalating a conflict.
Exactly. And then it's about finding common ground, looking for solutions that benefit both parties. But Ross also points out that Trump isn't afraid to walk away from a deal if it's not the right fit.
So it's about choosing your battles wisely.
Now let's shift our focus to the final stage of the real estate cycle: exit strategies. At some point, you'll want to sell a property, whether it's to realize a profit, free up capital for a new investment, or simply move on to something else.
It's about knowing when to hold them and knowing when to fold them, as they say in poker.
Exactly. And Ross gives us some great insights into Trump's approach to selling. Timing is crucial, of course. Understanding market trends, identifying the right buyer. It's all about maximizing your return on investment.
So he's not just slapping a for sale sign on a building and hoping for the best. He's strategically planning his exit, just like he plans every other aspect of his real estate ventures.
Right. And he doesn't just wait for buyers to come to him. He actively markets his properties, showcasing their unique features, highlighting their potential.
It's about creating a compelling narrative that attracts the right kind of buyer.
And Ross also touches on alternative exit strategies, like 1031 exchanges, which allow you to defer capital gains taxes when you reinvest the proceeds from a sale into another property, or refinancing, which allows you to pull equity out of a property without actually selling it.
So he's got a whole toolbox of strategies at his disposal, and he knows which one to use depending on the situation.
Now, before we wrap up this deep dive into Trump's strategies for real estate, I think there's one more key theme that Ross emphasizes throughout the book: the importance of integrity.
Absolutely. It's easy to get caught up in the world of wheeling and dealing and lose sight of your ethical compass.
But Ross really stresses that Trump, despite his reputation as a tough negotiator, always operates with a sense of fairness. He believes in building win-win relationships, where both parties feel good about the outcome. And he recognizes that reputation is everything in the real estate world.
It's about building trust and credibility, which ultimately leads to long-term success.
Exactly. And ultimately, I think that's one of the biggest takeaways from this book, that success in real estate, or any field for that matter, is not just about the tactics and strategies you employ. It's about the kind of person you are.
It's about having a strong set of values and principles that guide your decisions and actions.
And Trump's strategies for real estate really underscores that point. It's not just a how-to guide. It's a glimpse into the mindset of someone who has achieved extraordinary success in a highly competitive field.
Well, I have to say this has been a fascinating deep dive. I've always been intrigued by Trump's real estate empire, and this book has given me a whole new level of understanding of how he operates.
Me too. It's packed with insights and practical advice that anyone can apply, whether you're buying your first apartment or negotiating a multi-million-dollar deal.
So if you're looking for a book that will teach you how to think like a real estate mogul, Trump's Strategies for Real Estate is definitely worth a read.
And who knows? You might just find yourself applying some of these strategies to other areas of your life too.
Well, on that note, we'll wrap up our deep dive. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back soon with another fascinating book, Exploration.